All right, this is Drew, Lorenzo, Tyrone, and this is our book report on gender bullying and harassment strategies to end sexism and homophobia in schools by Elizabeth J. Meyer. We chose this book to help us get better insight into how to help students that are dealing with harassment and homophobia and how to help them as future educators.
The author, Elizabeth J. Meyer, is an instructor at McGill University. She's been in the education profession since 1993, and she's a well-known researcher that gave her the credentials to write this book. So, in our book synopsis, we came up with general questions that covered the main ideas of the book. So, in the first chapter, she addressed the differences between gender harassment and bullying. Specifically with gender harassment is when we as educators make students act in a feminine or masculine way purely based on their gender. She also goes into chapter 2 saying about how schools are dealing with nonconformities and harassment in the schools, about how we're implementing programs to ensure that bullying is decreased among students.
Among the research and interviews that Dr. Meyer conducted, she mentions these external factors that perpetuate problematic school culture. The top ranking one among all the interviews was the lack of official policy implemented for bullying and harassment. The next one was the lack of support given by administrators when approached with bullying and harassment. And then just the general workload and pressure of the day-to-day classroom routine that impacts the way teachers approach instances where harassment and bullying is taking place. Also, there were some internal factors within the teachers' lives that affect their sensitivity towards instances of bullying, among those being their own personal philosophy of education, being role models to students, as well as their own educational background, their life experiences, and overall their own personal identity and how that conflicts with their encounters with bullying and harassment.
So the last two questions that we brought out of the book, first it goes over all the laws that have been enacted in schools. It goes through a bunch of case studies of where students have filed lawsuits against the school based on harassment and bullying that they've encountered where they felt like the school wasn't doing anything about it. And I think it's important for us as future educators to know what these laws are, what the courts have said, and how we should be acting when we know about something, how we should deal with that. And then the last thing is just it goes over ways that we can begin to change the culture in the schools. And this really has to do with the administration, the district, superintendents, principals. It really has to be a top-down sort of changing the culture. It's difficult for something like that to start from the bottom. So a meaningful passage that we found that kind of illustrates really the issue is from a female teacher that Dr. Meyer interviewed. And the quote says, "There's a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of staff that have no idea about bullying and harassment, including myself, no idea how to deal with it. They just don't know how to enforce it, and they don't know because it doesn't apply to their own personal life. I just feel like some teachers just don't really have a clue. It's really scary. It's generally the ones who have been around forever, and they can't do anything with them because they're safe when it comes to employment." This just really points out how this teacher feels, that there are teachers that want to change the culture but can't, or there's teachers that have just been around forever, they're comfortable with the culture, they like the way it is, and they don't really want to change anything. They see it, and there's pointed out several times in the book how some teachers see it as the student's fault because they're not willing to conform. And so that's just really a really powerful passage from one teacher's perspective.
And so here are a few nuggets that we gained from the book. We recognize that teachers play an important role in either perpetuating or changing school culture. But at the same time, we recognize that there's a lot of tension that teachers have to juggle. On the one hand, there are external stresses and pressures that are being pushed down on teachers. And they also have to balance their own internal experiences when it comes to instances of bullying and gendered harassment. That's why there needs to be a clear and effective policy that is implemented, supported, and enforced by administration and trickles down all the way down to the students. And among this collaborative effort, there should be a system of support. No one should be doing it on their own.
So we as a group recommend this book because it simply gives us tools to know the issues that are going on. It gives us the tools to really dig in and see what the underlying problems of bullying are. It also gives us the tools to know what questions to ask our administrators when we're in the process of getting hired. We'll know what to do, when to do it, and who exactly to report it to.
So as future educators, once you're finished watching this video, we ask you to just reflect on a couple of these questions that points to the heart of your own personal educational background and techniques needed to fight against marginalization and discrimination.